So let's get right into it. The title of today's presentation, and I think this is what the name is, I can't say for sure, but something along the lines of Chewbacca by the numbers. And basically today we're just going to be looking at Chewbacca's performance in The Last Jedi. We're going to look at his entire performance by the numbers, all of his scenes, and just see, how they add up. Not necessarily in terms of time, but just in terms of how, what did he do in this film? Was it memorable? Is it anything of significance? Was he utilized, underutilized? Let's just make a little observer assessment, and then maybe put it in perspective of his other appearances in the franchise. Okay, so first off, this to my understanding, this would be his sixth appearance. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, the original trilogy, and two of these ones this trilogy. So where are you coming up with six? Okay, he was in a solo movie. All right, quite a bit. All right, so we have six films that is part of his body of work, so to speak, in the franchise, right? All right, so we're just looking at this one, and I'll come back to that whole idea about his body of work near the end, after we look at his work in the Last Jedi, which is what we're focusing on in this presentation. All right, so he was in 7 scenes. Went back methodically. If you've been watching my channel, you've seen the other videos. This is what I do. Painstakingly go through the video, dissect things out. Okay, so he was in 7 scenes. We're going to go through them since they're just 7 scenes and they only last a few, not even a minute. So let's just go through them. Fortunately, it's not like I really have to quote him or write down quotes of what he said, because you can't make out what he's saying. He's always being translated for, and sometimes they don't say nothing. So at any rate, let's look at these 7 scenes. Okay, the first time we see him in the film, 16 minutes and 8 seconds into the film, and this is when he bursts in Luke's door, if you want to call it a door, at his hut, when Rey is knocking on the door, no one is answering, and then the door gets burst in, and then there we go, there's Chewbacca, and then Rey comes in as well, and basically Chewbacca says something, and then Rey translates for him. This is what she says. He said, "You're coming back with us." That's Rey translating for Chewbacca. So that's his first time we see him in the film. That whole little scene, the whole little part lasts about 20 seconds, not that long. But that's his first appearance. His second appearance is when he's with Rey, and she says to Luke, "We need the Jedi Order back. We need Luke Skywalker." And he's in the background. He doesn't say anything. He's just standing there. But we see him. It's one of his scenes. He was there that day. He's in the film there. So that was his second scene. Nothing really big there. His third scene is his whole little thing with the porgs, where he's holding up the roasted porg, about to eat the porg. The other porg is in distress and crying and all, having an anxiety attack. That whole thing lasts about half a minute, 30 seconds. We all remember that. It's possibly his most memorable scene, possibly in the whole film, right? His fourth scene is when a little overlooked scene but he's on board with Rey. This is when Rey decides she's going to go down to Kylo Ren to try to turn him or talk sense with him, and so she's leaving the Millennium Falcon. She's in like a little pod, some type of jettison pod, if you remember. She lays down, it looks like a casket almost, or a hibernation chamber, and she lays down in this thing, and Chewbacca is there to sort of get her situated and push the button or whatever hell needs to be done to get her jettisoned off of the Millennium Falcon down to the Snook's Star Cruiser, what have you. So Chewbacca's in that scene. I don't even think he says anything, but he's in that scene. So that's his fourth scene. Fifth scene is when he's piloting the Millennium Falcon. They're on Crate. They're leading the TIE fighters on like a little wild goose chase to distract them and get them off the back of the skimmer ships and all that. And they go through the little canyons and everything. And the Porgs is all making house in the Millennium Falcon, and they have a little nest, and they got little baby Porgs, and they're sitting on the dashboard and having their faces all plastered against the windshield, and the noses pressing against the windshield. You know what I'm talking about. I'm calling it a windshield, but you know what the hell I mean when I say that. That whole little thing there. I mean, yeah. I mean that lasts about almost 2 minutes, a minute and a half. I mean, did he do a lot in there? I mean, he piloted the Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon did do a lot of stunts and stuff. Yeah, he was the one piloting. But you don't remember that scene because of his deft piloting. What you kind of recall from that whole little stuff, well, is that what the Millennium Falcon was doing, the fact that the Porgs was all over the place, sitting on his lap, and like they was driving and stuff like that. That's the fifth scene. The sixth scene is where Rey is now behind the base, in the back of the base, and her friends are behind the rocks, and then she lifts the rocks with the Force, and they have a reunion, and they're hugging, and we made it from the base, blah blah blah, and now we have to get, okay, everybody get on the Millennium Falcon. That whole little reunion scene amongst the rocks. Chewbacca's in the background, obviously, because he was there, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't really interact with anybody, anything of substance. And then his last appearance, his seventh scene, is when they're all on the Millennium Falcon, and it's almost like a meet and greet. They're all kind of introducing themselves to each other, and shaking hands and hugging each other and patting each other on the back, that they escaped Crate alive, and even though they don't know where the hell they're going. I mean, it must be on autopilot. The Millennium Falcon must be on autopilot, because Chewbacca is walking around, posing for wide shots and everything. Okay, if he's in that shot, who's driving the Millennium Falcon? Maybe it's on autopilot. But at any rate, that's the last thing. And he doesn't say anything. I don't even think he does anything memorable. But that's his last scene. So, if you want to look back at these 7 scenes and say, well, okay, so what are the highlights of his appearance there? You'd have to say is when he's eating the Porgs, or trying to eat the Porgs and throws away the Porg. That little scene, and him piloting the Millennium Falcon in the crevices I'll call it a dogfight chase scene, and the Porgs is all over the place. If you look back, you probably say, okay, well, those are his 2 standout scenes, right? Okay, so that's looking at his appearance by the numbers in this film. Now, is it a big performance? by Chewbacca standards, I mean, in my mind, it's pretty average. I mean, perfectly honest. Now, yeah, how does this parry up with his other films? Now, I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. Yes, I've seen the original trilogy several times. Whatever. If you'd have asked me, rank his performance in 4, 5, and 6, I'll be perfectly honest. It's kind of like a blur. I can't, to me, he was pretty much the same in all them films. I can't say, oh no, this was his better film in Return of the Jedi. To me, he was pretty average in all them films. Frankly, now you could argue with me and say, no, you're missing the whole point. You're forgetting when he did X, Y, and Z. Okay, then I'm forgetting when he did X, Y, and Z. But as I look back at the original trilogy, to be perfectly honest, I never watched them parsing out what exactly Chewbacca was doing. All right, to me, it's like a little blur. He was pretty average. I can't really remember anything standout-ish he was doing in any of them films. Now, okay, fast forward now, we're going to go to Force Awakens, and to me, his big scene was, going ape when Han Solo is killed, and then he just goes, berserk with guns and setting bombs and running around full stride, dead heat run. I mean, it was watching him was exhilarating. That was to me that was probably his most memorable, emotional, exciting highlight of the franchise. To me, that little section there. I mean, that's the most memorable, captivating scene of his that I can think of. Now, having said that, they want to say, oh yeah, but generally he doesn't have much to do. Now, let's put this all in perspective. He was in the Solo movie, and he was in the Solo movie quite a bit. I mean, pretty much throughout that whole thing. So I'm not dismissing that at all. I mentioned, remember in the beginning, I said 6 films, and that's 5. That's 5 episodes plus Solo. Okay. Now, screen time, you can't argue. By far, that's the film where he had the most screen time. Okay. Now, we could learn his backstory, how he met, Han Solo. We have his whole little arc in that mine where he's freeing the Chewbacca slaves and Chewbacca slave children and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I know that, this is the film where they showed him in layers, the complexity in his backstory and his life and his species and their struggles, and I get all that. That said, I'm still, and he probably was on the screen for over an hour. If you went back to that movie and calculated all the time he was on screen, it would probably be more than an hour. Probably. The whole thing with him in the cell down beneath the ground meeting Han Solo for the first time was about 10 minutes right there. 10, 12 minutes right there in my mind. Now you go back and, no, it was only like 4 minutes. Well, to me, as I'm just remembering back, and that was about a year ago, to me, it seemed like about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so at any rate, despite all the fact that he was all over the place in that film, there's still nothing really dramatic to me about his performance. Poignant, yes, all that. But if I was ranking the most memorable moments of his in the whole, all of his appearances, for me, you could argue, but for me, it's Force Awakens when he just goes, buck wild, planting death charges and running around shooting people and mode attack and screaming and jumping down ladders and stairs and jumping onto people and throwing people around. That, to me, that I will, up to this point now, who knows what he'll do in 9, but up to this point, that's his little scene that's gonna stand out for me, amongst all his appearances. What do you think? What is your most memorable Chewbacca moment, so to speak? List it down below. Put it in the comments. So that's all I got for you today, guys. I hope you liked today's presentation. This has been Chewbacca by the numbers. But hope you like this little breakdown. And I will see you again sometime soon. Bye-bye.